Step into the unknown with Hauntings in the Valley, a spine-tingling journey into the supernatural, masterfully reimagined by the renowned Dr. Edwin Dark. Drawing inspiration from the mystique of Victorian seances, this exclusive attraction promises an unforgettable night filled with paranormal intrigue and otherworldly encounters. An evening of supernatural activities, the night unfolds with a series of eerie and fascinating paranormal activity culminating in a thrilling dark seance. Exclusive access. Your ticket is a passport to the world beyond the veil. Please note, space is unlimited to preserve the intimacy and intensity of the experience. We're open Fridays and Saturdays from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. at 2495 Soho Road, Suite 5 inside the Maggie Town Center, Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Shows are by reservation only. And are limited to 4 guests per show. We're waiting for you here at Hauntings in the Valley. Always remember, we'll be lurking for you.
You're now entering
The Horror Sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And this week we're going to be chatting with, and I just thought chatting, that's just the appropriate word for this guest. We'll be chatting with, and honored to be joined by actor, writer, director, Mr. Nicholas Vince. Mr. Vince, welcome to the Sanctum.
Thank you very much indeed, Jay. Yeah, I like that. Yes, yeah. I have
We'll be chattering with
chattering. Yeah. I've done chattering with Nicholas Vince. I've done the chattering hour. I take as much advantage of this as possible.
Nice. So you've been in several films, including Book of Monsters, which we all love. We actually had Lindsay on the show. She's one of our first guests. She's amazing. You've also been in Nightbreed, another amazing film. But you were probably most well known for your role in the Hellraiser series as the Cenobite Chatterer. So naturally, that's where we're going to start.
Okay.
I was curious, how did you come about landing this role? And off of that, tell us about that process of getting those prosthetics and the makeup and all that.
Okay, cool. All right. So I was a friend of Clive's, is the short answer to that question. In fact, Clive, all the Cenobites were friends of his. Doug Bradley he'd known since school. Simon Bamford, who plays Butterball, and I were at drama school together, Mount View Theatre School, which was near where Clive lived. And Clive had seen Simon literally playing the fool in King Lear, and invited him to join his theatre company, the Dog Company, which Simon did when he graduated. And then about a year or so later, I think Simon must have invited me to a party, and I just met Clive. And this is about 3 years before Hellraiser. And so we just, and Clive had his cousin Grace played the female Cenobite. And Clive's condition was that he didn't want just extras playing the Cenobites. He wanted actors. He really wanted actors. I was just very fortunate he decided to choose me and his other mates, basically, to play Cenobites. So that's how it came about. That's how I got the part. The makeup process, I got a smart aleck answer to that. And my smart aleck answer is it took about 3 months, because if you factor in before you get anywhere close to actually putting the makeup on the actor ourselves, you've got all the preparation stuff. So in those days, do a thing called a life cast, where they cover your face in alginate, which is a powder that they use in dentists when they're taking impressions of your teeth. They cover your face in that, and then they so they can get the detail, and then they cover you in plaster of Paris bandages to form a mold. They then fill that mold with so 2 parts, shove it back together again, fill it with plaster, take that off, and then they physically sculpt in clay, or they did in those days, use clay, the actual mask itself. Then they repeat that process for the mask, scrape off all the clay. Oh, this is boring. Anyone doesn't want to know how to do this, but this is how you made masks in those days. And then they fill up the gap with latex rubber. Now, that took a long time. That took 3 months to do that kind of stuff. I think it was about 3 months. It may have been it may have been closer to 2 months, but it certainly took a while. I was very lucky on the day. It actually only took about an hour into makeup and costume, because it wasn't stuck to my face. It wasn't pieces. It was just the single mask with the teeth, which are attached to my teeth as well. So yeah, smart aleck answer is it took about 2 to 3 months on the day, about an hour into makeup and costume.
And we were debating before you jumped on, the first rendition of the mask, the eyes were sewed shut. How did you see out of that mask?
I didn't. There's a little teeny pinhole for me to see. So basically, I had very, very limited hearing, speech, and I was led around the set by the hand. But because I couldn't see once I was in it. It was tough. It was very tough to act. That Simon was I think he was completely blind when he was in Butterball, and he had the same thing. So we they kept, but because for the both of us, it was very quick to get the makeup on. They left us out of it as much as possible, and then just put it on when we were needed to go on set. Except in my case, for a couple of days, when they left me in it for about 8 hours. So yeah, we're gonna get to him and then come to the end of the day, and there's like, oh, actually, we're not going to do it today. But 2 days in a row, that was not pleasant.
I imagine having to trust somebody to that's a lot of trust involved. Like, I can't see, take me where I need to be. I guess they would have to constantly be positioning you and everything. Yeah, that seems a little.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could see a bit. It was like, it is literally, like that. So if you look at it, when you see me, I've got a slight tilt looking to the side. It's so that I can kind of look forward through the left eye slightly. You'll see him, the final scene when I was pushing Andrew backwards. I notice it when I look at the film. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why I'm looking slightly off, as if I'm looking kind of being which funnily enough, I think sells how dismissive he is of Andrew Robinson playing Frank, trying to leave at the very end of the film. Sorry, spoilers. But he pushes him back because he's just got this, who you kidding, look about it. And it's just because I wanted to make sure I could actually see or as close to see as possible before didn't actually knock over one of the lead actors and injure them. I think, yeah.
That's funny. So before, I'm sure you get a ton of Hellraiser questions. I would assume it's 90% of what you answer. So I'm going to ask some different things. But before we move on to something else, did you enjoy the new rendition of the film, the one that Hulu put out? Have you
Yes,
seen
I
that
did.
one?
I did. I know people, I have a number of people saying, yeah, it wasn't the same. Well, duh. No, it's not going to be the same. It's really hard to take something that is so well established and is so complete in itself and stood the test of time, and do something different with it. I think my reaction is a lot based on the fact that I went on to write Hellraiser comics. So I wrote 8-page comic stories that were put into anthologies. And it's very hard to do a short story, which is not somebody opens a, finds a puzzle box, gets the puzzle box, opens the puzzle box, the Cenobites come. It's very hard to do something different with that. I think we did. There are some wonderful stories in the Hellraiser, the original Hellraiser comics, and the more recent versions. But it's hard to get away from that, to actually. And I tremendous respect. I like the fact that you had the lament configuration was only one form of the puzzle box. I thought that was a good gag. I happen to know that they'd recast, that I was never going to be able to play Chatterer again. Put on way too much weight. I knew that the actor who was playing it was very tall. And I thought, that's great. That's really very, very cool. And of course, it's the difference between foam, latex, rubber, and silicon. As a makeup medium. I think they were able to go a lot more extreme in terms of the what they're representing. And I like the fact that it's a female Pinhead. I thought Jamie did a great job in that. And I just thought, yeah, no, well done, everyone involved. And no, it'll never be like Hellraiser because you can't make it, twice. I think the closest we got with it was Hellbound, because they're so beautifully meshed together. The Hellraiser 2. So yeah, I did enjoy Hulu. I'm a big fan.
I thought it was probably one of the better remakes we've gotten. And like you said, you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. So all these other movies, they get shit on so much. But that's because in our heads we have what Pinhead looks like, and it's Doug. We have what Freddy Krueger looks like, what Leatherface looks like, and then that's what we stick to. So when these other movies come out and try to do something different, we're just like, no, I'm good. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Like even The Exorcist Believer, we just did an episode on that, and I think everybody hated it but me for the most part. I'm like, I get what they were trying to do, but you're never going to be able to recreate the original Exorcist. Never, ever. We just have to realize and evolve and change the way we think about things.
And also, I was watching something the last couple of days, and somebody was pointing out the fact that horror is based on the society that creates it. The monsters that we react to are based on what's going on at the time. The classic one, King Kong, this rampaging beast that goes through the jungle, has been likened to the Great Depression and the way that it ripped up cities and destroyed things. It's an unstoppable force that seemed to be devastating stuff. Invasion of the Body Snatchers and the whole communist thing, and so on. You can look at that. Therefore, when you're going back to something, there is an element of where we were at the time back in 1987 when that was originally released. So no, I think it's very hard.
Yeah, true. So I watched Borley Rectory, which is an animation hybrid film about the most haunted house in England. You played Reverend Smith. From that, I was just curious, do you believe in ghosts?
I always say I believe that people believe in ghosts. And I think that's the important thing. Do I like the idea of a soul being trapped? No, I think that's terrible punishment for anybody. I think there are lots of psychological reasons why people need to believe in ghosts. I think it's a lot to do with grieving and the process of grieving and so on, and the way that we react. And when somebody is suddenly taken from you, particularly under violent circumstances, I think it's part of the human condition. That's the way we do that. I love a good ghost story, though. I love a good, terrifying, weirdy. I grew up on ghost stories. reading anthologies of ghost stories from way too young, probably. But personally, no, I'm not. I'm not convinced just because I don't like the concept. The idea. I do believe in reincarnation. Funnily enough, that's something that makes sense to me. I like that for two particular reasons. I'm incredibly arrogant. The idea that I'm just going to be around and then you're dead, poof, that's it. No, that doesn't suit me at all in terms of my philosophy. But I also think if you believe in reincarnation, if you believe you might be reincarnated in this planet, you're going to take a lot more care of this planet. If you think, oh, it's not just your grandkids that are going to have to deal with the fact that there is such a thing as climate change, you might actually start thinking a little bit more about society and so on. And I think it's to me, it's a more pleasing philosophical and life-enhancing philosophy in terms of reincarnation.
I've never heard anybody really explain it like you don't like the concept of ghosts because being trapped like that. Like I've never thought about it that way, and that makes a lot of sense. I personally don't believe. My wife swears she had one in a house she lived in. I think his name was Hugh, but everybody's different. I think Kellen's had some experiences. I've never personally had like a real experience. Like I've had some things that I can explain, but now that I look at it from what you just said, like I don't want there to be ghosts because that is kind of sad. Like what if I'm a ghost and something happened to me in my life and I'm having to suffer through it through the afterlife like that? Yeah, that's no fun.
The other idea, I mean, the other concept, the other explanation of ghosts I've come across, which was explained in a TV drama back in the 1970s called The Stone Tape. And that's the idea that when something really powerfully emotional or violent happens within a room, it's kind of written into the fabric of the brick or the stone or the wood.
It becomes like a resonant
it becomes like
energy memory. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they call that like a revenant echo.
Yes. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so, there are people who are sensitive to these things. And also, if you're in a particularly heightened emotional state, you're kind of replaying the tape. So that kind of makes sense to me and takes out that thing of what I was talking about. It's not a soul trapped in something. It is. Having said that, as a writer, I love playing with the idea of ghosts because I think they're really scary. They're fun to write about.
I got one more, and then we'll pass it along. Do you gravitate towards horror when you go up for roles, or when you're looking for something? Is that the genre that you prefer, or is it just it is what it is?
It's as I said, I was reading ghost stories when I was probably way too young. I'd been fascinated by horror way before I met Clive. I think that's one of the reasons Clive and I got on so well when I first met him, was because my love of horror and creatures goes back to making models of Frankenstein and Phantom of the Opera and the werewolf, glow-in-the-dark Aurora models. Mid-teens, but reading Greek myths and legends, and just reading lots and lots of ghost stories when I was a kid. So yeah, and I've always been fascinated in terms of, I kind of like those things because I think it's actually such an important medium, horror, because I think when it's done well, when it's done intelligently, it deals with the big questions of life, sex, and death. And that's what and it can, when it's done intelligently, I think it really shows something about the human condition. Thinking of things like Roger Corman's Mask of the Red Death. So things that just make you think, and The Mist is one of my favorites because it's not so much about the mist. The real horror comes from the people inside. It comes from that wonderful. I can't remember the lady's name who plays her, who just says, this is the end of days. This is you're all being punished. And of course, everyone flocks to her because she's got an answer. She can explain it, and even better, can point to people to blame for what's going outside the doors and the things in the mist. So I think I've always gravitated. Somebody was asking, the producer, funnily enough, was asking me this the other day. I mean, I've no objection to playing something outside horror, but yeah, I'm quite happy working in horror.
Marcia Gay
So-
Harden is the lady.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Great actress. Absolutely terrifying in that film.
So I'm gonna come back to the Chatterer one more time because I have a very specific question about that character. As an actor, what are some of the hurdles of trying to quote unquote act when you're so hindered by prosthetics and the entire outfit?
It's a very good question, because somebody once said to me, somebody at a convention I was chatting said how impressed by what a measured performance I'd given. And I thought, well, that comes from two things. One is something that Clive said to Doug, and that was constantly do less. Because makeup, pinhead makeup for Doug was so extraordinary, he just didn't need to do anything. People were just reacting to that thing. But as far as the Chatterer is concerned, I literally couldn't do a great deal. All the movement that you see me do in the film was all the movement I could do. But I think the fallout of that was it just makes him incredibly powerful. In Hellbound, you see him with eyes because I'd whinged so much between Hellraiser and Hellbound about the fact that I couldn't see. I thought we could do more with it, but I was wrong. We did film some bits where Chatterer had got eyes and he's chasing Kirsty and Tiffany down a corridor in the hospital. Actually, it takes his power away. He then becomes like a Freddy. He then becomes, and this is not denigrating Freddy or any of those other great movie monsters. The fact that he's so still and he will still touch you. I mean, he will. Chatterer is the only one who actually touches Kirsty. The others just threaten. And there is a good chance that the female Cenobite seems to be about to attack her with a knife. But yeah, Chatterer's right in there. He just does that. But he doesn't do anything apart from chatter his teeth, and that's it. It's incredibly effective. So frustrating, difficult, very, very, very challenging at the time. But I'm so grateful for the one, Clive's original design and Nigel Booth, who actually created the Chatterer makeup, and Jane Wildgoose, who designed the costumes, and Rosemary Sylvester Fisher, who made the costumes, and everybody else on set, who actually brought this all together.
Yeah, I think that's what's so impactful, especially about the first Hellraiser, is it's not so much in your face, it's the visuals that are put on screen that make it so powerful and haunting. So you've been a patron of the London Horror Festival since 2016. Seeing all of the younger people get into horror and the popularity in recent years that horror has had, are you optimistic with the trajectory that the horror community is going? You talked about everything coming from where we are in a society, and you could argue that as far as society goes, we're in a really strained situation from all directions, maybe even unique in history. So do you feel like the trajectory of horror is going in the right direction, or you're optimistic about where we're heading?
I'm very optimistic about young people. I'm optimistic about the fact that there is still such a love of the genre. It's interesting. We are not in good times. My parents were in the Second World War and in the Blitz and so on. And times are tough. And I think times are politically Well, funnily enough, I think we're very close to the 1930s. I think we're very much in a stage where something very nasty could eat. Well, in fact, it already has happened in Gaza and in Ukraine and so on. These things are happening now. We've never really known peace, I guess. So I was at a film festival. I was screening my drama documentary, I Am Monsters, in Bournemouth last weekend, and met some really interesting young filmmakers and people. I was working with working with another young director called Charlie Steed last week as well. And there are people who are passionate about the genre. And what I really like is the fact that a lot of the young people I meet, are fans of Hellraiser, and that, it's really interesting to talk to them, these young filmmakers, when we talk about their influence, the influence of the film on that. But they've got their own visions. They've definitely got their own visions. And as I was alluding to earlier, I think they definitely do reflect what's going on in the world. They reflect even if it's not, and this, comes back to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's not ostensibly about communism, but you can easily see how it could be taken like that, because it's about friends not being who you think they are, and actually being the enemy rather than and masks and so on. So I think there's two things. All artists are the good artists if they're listening to what's going on around them in the world. I think this is part of how art comes to be. Unless you happen to be writing in a cave and have no interaction with the world, you're going to be influenced by what's gone before and what's happening now. That's inevitable.
So, as not just an actor in, but a writer of horror, both in comics like the Hellraiser and Nightbreed comics, and then your collection of short stories with What Monsters Do and Other People's Darkness, where do you yourself pull inspiration from?
Really research. I'm working on a novella at the moment, and it's a murder mystery. So I am reading up a lot about forensic science. I'm reading up a lot about the way our judicial system works in the UK. I tend to base my inspiration on reality as much as possible, because I think that's kind of my style of writing. When I write short stories, I kind of only want to twist one thing. I want to make them as real as possible, but just allow one twist. One of the earlier short stories, you have this character is effectively, you've heard of a storyteller. This lady is a story taker. And it's that kind of thing. So inspiration tends to come from research, which is a great way of getting through writer's block. That was a very good piece of advice I read years ago when I was writing comics. If you just do some research, and look at factual stuff. I think we tend to be rather, in terms of actually writing short stories, I have to say, when I first started writing short stories, the first thing I did was go back to Clive's books of blood. I thought, how do you write a short story? I know, I'll go and read Clive's books of blood. He's really good at writing short stories. The other influences are H.H. Munro, otherwise known as Saki, S-A-K-I, an Edwardian British writer who wrote these phenomenal 3-4 page short stories, some of which are very dark. The reason they were so short is because they were published in newspapers. In the good old fashioned days where you got news and you got literature at the same time. So yeah, those are my main influences.
So one last thing for me, and then I'll pass it along. But for you personally, who would you put at the top of your list of horror creatures?
Okay. Really interesting question. Gosh, they're all springing to mind now.
Can't say Chatterer.
No, okay.
Says who?
Do you know?
He's iconic.
Do you know what? I did that at a Q&A a couple of weeks back, and I got shouted at for saying Chatterer. I said, let's be honest, what is the closest to my heart? Of course it is. It's most likely to be the werewolf, and particularly Larry Talbot in The Wolfman, the universal black and white. Because, and I mentioned this in I Am Monsters when I'm talking about monsters, it's the fact that the way Larry Talbot becomes a werewolf is when he tries to rescue a woman who's being attacked by a werewolf, he gets bitten and it's just horrified about what's happening to him. I like that real thing. And I think the great thing about werewolves as well is about family reaction and how do you've got this terrible secret and you're compelled, and there's a psychopathy about it, and there's all sorts of things that you can read into werewolves. So my creatures, tend to be, probably up the top there is the Wolfman.
Well, and Lon Chaney Jr., that was the role he was born to play, right? He had a tragic life, and that role just resonated.
It's really interesting. I've spoken to his son, Ron, when I was getting the and we'll talk fully about this later on possibly, but when I was sorting out permissions, I ended up by chatting with Ron Chaney, and I was supposed to be talking business, and at the same time I was freaking like a fanboy and saying, your dad was Lon Chaney Jr. This is extraordinary. And I'm talking. He's a lovely man. He's a really, really nice man. He was very generous and really supportive. But it's like, yeah. And of course, Lon Chaney Jr. is the Wolfman, but also you said creature, so I didn't choose Phantom of the Opera because that's very much a man, and that's something different in my book. But that is the other, Phantom of the Opera is, and particularly Lon Chaney's rendition of it is a huge fan of that.
So I'm going to go back to, I know you both were talking about, you and Jay were talking about the Hulu Hellraiser remake. I thought this when I watched it, and you can tell me your theory. And also, I'm sure if you know something, you can't say anything, but
sure.
Do you feel as if that's just a sequel and perhaps that's just another box, another group of Cenobites, perhaps that Pinhead and your character, the Chatterer, maybe, because at the end of the movie, I remember when he's talking up to like the god, I thought to myself, oh, they're going to bring Pinhead in. And even after the film, I just thought, I bet this world coexists. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, of course, this is a very interesting idea, isn't it? I think there are many Cenobites. There are more Cenobites, but 4. I find it really interesting. We talk about the influence of the Chatterer. There has been a chattering something in all the movies, more or less. There's even a chattering dog. But then Gary Tunnicliffe did a version of the Chatterer in the later movies, and there's also Chatterer as well. So there are lots and lots of different Cenobites. Therefore, you can have a female Pinhead and you can have a male Pinhead. So yeah, I don't know anything specific. There have been lots of conversations about Hellraiser TV series and so on, and doing more of them. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's because it's such a wide landscape of a world. It's such a big world that Clive created in the first film, and was expanded by Pete Atkins and Clive in the second film. Because we get to go into hell and we get to see Leviathan. and so on. So I think, yes, I think this house has there are many mansions in that realm. I don't know what that quote is.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hope for, is maybe there's connections and a lot more to come. When you made Hellraiser, when you were in Hellraiser 1, one thing I notice about that film that really separates it from so many horror films is there's something that's so dark and unnerving about that film. It's more than just the visuals, it's the way the characters portray the script. When you were acting in that film, and I always wonder this with actors when they are on a set that's dark, does that carry home with you in that you feel this darkness, or is it kind of like you're buds with these people and you're like, I can just cut it off, go home, eat dinner. It's, you kind of forget about it. I wonder how that process is.
It honestly, I was really depressed at the end of Hellraiser. I think Simon was too. Being in a mask, it's like sensory deprivation. The mask that we're in is very big. If you put your hands over your ears, you get that rushing sound. And I was left in like that for 8 hours. So I'm covered from head to foot in leather or rubber, and I'm there for 8 hours. So there was an emotional time. I remember when I got to the end of it, and I remember there was something that happened on the set of Hellbound as well. I'm just getting home crying and thinking, oh my God. On the other hand, it was hilarious. You think Vincent Price said it when he talked about acting and all these things. Oh, please, bring some humor into the film. Because, and I think the most successful horror films have a level of humor in them, because that's kind of how they get you. Because if you're laughing at something, it's really much easier to scare you rather than if it's you've got to. There are certain films which I think are just intense. I prefer my films with more humor in them. On set and off set, and when we were in makeup, and it's hilarious. We had so much fun. I mean, which comes a lot from Clive, and his sense of humor. Most of us were really young. The guys from Image Animation who created those makeups were either in the very late teens or early 20s. And yeah, there was lots and lots of humor on set, because when you're on set, you can't take it seriously. I think there's two things. I think I probably suffered a lot more than other people, just simply because, and Simon as well, because of the physical thing that we were going through. In fact, Doug has said it at a convention. He just said, whatever he went through in terms of sitting in a chair, so pleased he didn't have to go through what Simon and I had to go through. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts. There were some definite emotional costs, which is why I really wanted to have eyes when I was playing Chatterer in Hellbound. When I came back to do it a second time, I really wanted eyes. But lots and lots of laughter.
That's cool. One thing I've always wondered, I'm a big fan of Hellraiser 2, and I've always just found that film fascinating, just the stories behind the scenes on it. What were, when you went into that script and you agreed to it, what was it like going into it? Because Clive doesn't direct it, but he's there. He's writing the script. What was that?
No, Clive didn't write it. Pete Atkins wrote it.
Oh,
Clive produced. He was very heavily involved. But he was preparing Nightbreed at the time. So he didn't actually write it. Pete Atkins wrote it. But as I say, I know he was very heavily involved, because it was Clive who decided that one of the Cenobites was going to be a child when they changed back. And I think it was just luck of the draw that I became a child. Sorry, what was your question?
Oh no, I was just curious what did you think about the film as far as the process of making it and the outcome versus the first one? I know, to me, it's I always think of one and two as like the perfect combo, right? I love them both, and I know they're different films, but I just wondered what your thoughts were on making two, how it came out, like your opinion of it. I've
Oh
always,
yeah, I was very different because I'd not met Tony Randall before.
Mhm.
And it wasn't Clive, and I really missed Clive. I think we all did,
Mhm.
because he was, it was just so much fun on set. You get Clive's sense of humor on set. This is no criticism of Tony, by the way. He's a great director. And he's a really, really lovely man. And obviously, to be honest, as Cenobites, we didn't have that much interaction with him, because I think one of the strengths of Hellraiser is the fact that it's about adults, and your lead, apart from Kirsty, obviously, they make up the bulk of the movie. I think Doug always says, I think the Cenobites are not on screen for more than 8 minutes in the first film. And I think perhaps slightly less until you get to Chennard and so on, and probably about the same in Hellbound. So the director's going to be concentrating on his leads rather than the Cenobites. Whereas with Clive, obviously, we were mates and hanging out and so on, and wanting to be as supportive. I mean, the great thing was it was the difference between shooting in a really small studio called the Production Village in North London, and then shooting at Pinewood Studios. It was worlds apart in terms of the size of the production. In terms of the finished outcome, I think it's great. I'll tell you what, first,
Is it Pinewood where they shot a lot of the Star Wars films?
Yes.
yes, and James Bond and Batman. They just, Tim Burton's Batman. When they just finished that when we did Nightbreed, because we did Nightbreed as well. I loved Hellbound. It's got I love some of the lines. I got to meet Ken Cranham, who's a wonderful, wonderful person. I got to meet Claire again. I got to meet Kirsty again. Hang out with all my mates. I got to meet Barbie for the first time and became very good friends with her, Barbie Wild, who plays female Cenobite. So it was a lot of, again, it was just a completely different scale. And it was fun. It was fun. I do like the movie. I think there are people who prefer 2 to 1, and people who prefer 1 to 2. They do bookend beautiful. I mean, they literally start about half an hour after the first film ends. So it's almost like a 2-part film, really.
Yeah, I really think so. And one thing I wonder, and I'm going to pass this along, this is after this, but I wonder, with filmmakers now and looking back on someone like Clive Barker, do you find that nowadays with filmmaking, especially with horror, that it's more difficult to achieve like a vision? It seems like, and this is just my perspective, classical filmmakers from the 70s, 80s, 60s, they can make a film and it can be so multifaceted, so multi-layered. There could be so many things going on, like you were talking about behind the scenes or the meanings behind it, but it wasn't really in your face. It seems like now what filmmakers happen oftentimes with studios is it almost comes across like filmmakers are giving a thing. They're not giving a story. They're told like, let's make a movie about this. But it seems like back in the day, it was more like, I have a story, but I'm going to use this story to tell something about our society. I don't know if you noticed that, or maybe that's just maybe the nostalgia of loving Clive Barker and older
Sure.
filmmakers.
I think it's difficult. I think that one of the reasons it's difficult for filmmakers is because Hellraiser is a fairly low budget movie. It was around about $1 million at the time. There is controversy as to whether or not Clive's always said it was under $1 million. Met people who said no, it wasn't. It was more than that. But it was around. It was not a big Hollywood budget movie. New World Pictures were not. New World Pictures. Roger Corman wasn't part of it, but it definitely comes out of a lot of the people who were there then who worked with Roger Corman. And I always kind of feel it's a spiritual child of Roger Corman's style of filmmaking. There is so much money involved in making a film these days, particularly a good one. It's why I like going to horror film festivals, because then you tend to meet the young up and coming filmmakers who are doing what Clive was effectively doing and Roger Corman did in a lot of his early films. They're low budget, they are low budget films. You've got more flexibility because there's less to lose. I think one of the reasons I love horror films as well is the audience. Horror audiences are some of the best in the world because they're so encouraging and forgiving. They will, if they get the story. So I think you tend not to see in bigger budget films. There is an argument that could be said, and I'm sure somebody's going to come up with some wonderful examples that prove me wrong. But I think it's easier for somebody to have a vision and to stick with their vision at the beginning when there's a lot less money involved. And this is what happened with Nightbreed. I mean, this is the classic case in point. Nightbreed was such a large vision, it was such a large budget, and the producers didn't really understand what they were. They didn't understand Clive's vision from what I've been told. And Clive's written about the fact that you completely, it's hard. It's very hard. So I think if you find, as I say, going back to young filmmakers, I think there are some really exciting young filmmakers out there, and it's then hard to actually go on do stuff. You were talking about Book of Monsters, How to Kill Monsters, which was from Stuart Spark and Paul Butler at Dark Rift. I also worked on their previous film, Book of Monsters. I've watched those guys do this in terms of their production, their style, but they know what they do and they do it very well, and that's horror comedy. And they have a real vision for doing this kind of really good, entertaining horror stuff that's got both thrills and twisting and turning and good acting and fun, but it's just fun. And it's got some wonderful moments in it. So I think the lower the budget, the easier it is to keep your vision. The bigger the budget, until you become somebody like David Lean, where you can do something like Lawrence of Arabia and keep your vision absolutely intact. It does happen. Hitchcock did it, but again, I'm going back years and years for people to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's true what you say about low budget horror. As speaking from someone who's attempting to make at varying degrees, I've written about 5 or 6 screenplays now. One with Jay actually recently from his idea, and we're in the process of going through the production notes and back and forth with producers, all that stuff. We'll probably make at least one at some point later this year, but it seems to be like, in order to have that control where a studio can't kind of undercut your vision and that kind of thing, there right now, at least in America, it seems like $500,000 is kind of that perfect point where you have enough to have enough production value where you can still do some pretty cool things on a budget now that everything's digital and you're not having to pay for film and all the processes that went in with that y'all had to do in the 80s and 90s. But also not be too much of a financial risk to where you can't even get investors, or you have to have so many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. There does seem to be that magic.
Yeah, and I think
right
what is very noticeable, if you look at the beginnings of films before the titles roll, it's the number of idents, producer idents you see at the beginning. I mean, in the good old days, well, Hellraiser, it's New World Pictures. That's the only ident you get at the very beginning.
Yeah.
You make it a distributor as well. I can't remember if New World
Now
distributor.
you got 3 or 4 production companies with
Yeah,
producers
and
on each of them.
yeah, and it's really common to see half a dozen, if not 8, of these idents before you actually get anywhere. Well, that's 2 or 3 minutes of stuff because nobody can risk it. Nobody can put in all their eggs in one bowl, unless they happen to have an awful lot of eggs. Yeah, it's tough. But well, congratulations, guys, on finishing screenplays and keeping at it. I'm immediately reminded of the adage, a film is made when you write it, when you film it, and then when you edit it. And there are 3 different films at those stages.
Yeah. And it took 22 years from my first idea wanting to write a screenplay, and then writing about 6 books to keep from, or starting 6 books and never finishing any of the books to keep from actually writing a screenplay, just because I was terrified of the format and Final Draft. And this was even before Final Draft was like the standard. Like I was in high school coming up with ideas and just trying to find a way not to write them. Yeah, I had stuff on floppy disk.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I feel better about the 10 years it's taken me to write certain stories, and and so yeah, I've been going through. I'm in the process of my shelves look beautiful behind me. Well, that's because I just cleared all the shelves behind me and started spreading all the things. We can't go to bed tonight until I actually clear all the stuff off the bed because I just shelved everything out. I've got a bit of time at the moment, and I've suddenly got to this stage where, funnily enough, what happened to me was that as I mentioned, I was in Bournemouth last weekend for a film festival, and I arrived on the Friday. I didn't know anybody else was there. The people, Stuart, who co-producer of I Am Monsters and one of the co-writer and director of How to Kill Monsters, wasn't able to make it down. And Lindsay, who you mentioned earlier on. And so I was just in the hotel room by myself, and I got an email saying, "Oh, this is for an upcoming magazine called Phantasmagoria, which is doing a Hellraiser special." And I'd said, and they asked me for permission to reprint a short story called Look See that came out when Hellbound came out. And they got permission from Clive to do short stories based on the Hellbound Heart, Clive's original novella on which Hellraiser is based. But that's different from the Hellraiser films, and I was conscious the short story that I was thinking about is very much based on the films. I didn't want to get into trouble. I thought, oh, I really need to rewrite this. It's like, oh, I'm sitting in a hotel room all by myself and there's nothing on TV. I suppose I could sit down. 4 hours later, over like 1,200 words later.
Oh, wow.
It's just like, oh, I can do this if I've got no distractions. My study is nothing but distractions, so I'm working my way through the study at the moment and just clearing everything out. I've managed to
90% of writing is overcoming all of the obstacles to keep you from writing.
I remember Pete Atkins saying to me, "Nick, what you have to understand when you're writing, it's amazing how important housework is going to become."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah. And the other piece, there was a lovely, I was at a science fiction horror writers convention, and there was a gentleman who used to write TV series. I thought he was really fascinating. I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but he wrote things like The Avengers, not the Marvel thing,
the British,
TV,
yeah,
the British TV thing. Yeah, he wrote all those kind of things. He said, writing simple. It's bum to chair and pen to paper. And I thought, yeah, that is really all it is. Oh, I forget my case keyboard. And he said, no, so I never bothered to do research, just made it up. No one really cares. If they want to know about nuclear fuels and so on, they'll go and watch a documentary. I'm writing fiction. It's just got to make sure, you've just got to be consistent within the world. I mean, I respect that point of view and what he was writing for. As I say, for me, it needs to be as real as humanly possible. I really like research and making stuff and putting stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Everybody's process is different.
Mm.
But before, we kind of wrap up, there's a couple questions I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about, because Nightbreed, particularly the unrated director's cut that come out a number of years ago, is one of my favorite Clive Barker films. And I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about your character and how you got involved in that film. You played the character of Kinski.
I played the character of Kinski. God, I have been talking for a long time, haven't I? I hadn't realized how late it was. Again, Clive just offered me the role. Went through various makeups. The first makeup he didn't like, and so I was going to be working with one makeup, and then he decided it wasn't going to work. I'd not even tried it on. He just didn't like the way he'd realized it wasn't going to move. It's in the book, the character who is with Pelican in the book Cabal, that says the character who's with Pelican when they meet Boone is called Jackie. And Jackie has two faces because he's two brothers whose faces meld together, and there are very definitely two different characters in that one face. And it just wasn't working because they had to use a glass eye for one of the characters, so you couldn't get it to work. It just wouldn't. And so the next thing I knew, I was looking like Max Tonight. Yeah, that was it. There are longer stories, which I won't bore you with at the moment. But yeah, that's kind of how it is. It was great. I got to see, I was so happy, and I got lines.
Yeah, you have a pretty significant character in the
And
story.
your eyes were exposed. You could see where you were going.
I see where I was going. I had to dye my chest hair black. I got to run around I got to meet David Cronenberg. I got to, meet Anne Bobby, became very good friends with Anne and Bobby, and Craig Sheffer. Got lovely, lovely, lovely Craig Sheffer.
I feel like your character almost feels like it inspires in some way kind of Guillermo del Toro's version of Hellboy a little bit, and kind of a little bit of the look of that character.
Oh, that's interesting, because of course Hellboy is actually not Guillermo's character.
Yeah, it was a
Based on a
comic
comic.
before that.
Yeah,
so I wonder if that might have even influenced somebody.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, there's something. I suppose there is something a little. I have no idea. Possibly, who knows these things? I would never claim as such, because I've never spoken to the artist whose name entirely escapes me. I think, but that's all about inspiration. When we were talking about what inspires you earlier, well, everything inspires you. It can be sometimes a fragment of a line. It can be the way two words go together. It can be anything. So I'm not going to say. But Nightbreed, a wonderful film, and it's touched a lot of people. I suppose
it's kind of like a Clive Barker nightmare version of Alice in Wonderland a little bit.
It is. I mean, Clive always described it as Gone with the Wind with monsters, because of the scale of it. But I think what he's identifying is that at the heart, it's a love story. I suppose in some ways it's about a woman who goes, who deals with a dead guy who's her lover. There is an analogy, you can draw the comparisons between Hellraiser and Nightbreed at the core. But it's also dealing with the monstrous. I mean, more emphatically, it's dealing with the monstrous and the fact that monsters are okay. Just leave them alone. Let them go away and be happy and do themselves, stay away. And also that human beings are assholes.
Yeah, there's definitely some social commentary more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mentioned in I Am Monsters that the thing that always scared me in the Universal horror films was less the creatures, because to me, Frankenstein creature and Larry Tolby are talking about our victims.
Yeah,
it's the mob that is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's
It's
really
the
scary.
monsters inside of us, and how it can manifest as a group of people.
Yeah, the way that fear makes monsters in that sense.
So is my final question before I turn to Jay to wrap up is tell us a little bit about your one-man show, I Am Monsters, and how that is now becoming a documentary, and how we'll be able to see that in the coming months.
Okay, well, where we are at the moment is that it came out of, you mentioned London Horror Festival, which, as I say, it was a patron of, and I'd watched all these wonderful one-person shows, both male and female. And I just thought, this is a really interesting format. And I know I've got enough. And the format was always 50 minutes or just under an hour. I thought, I know I've got enough stories, not just from the set, but actually the backstory. Why does Chatterer look the way he does, for example, and some of the stories that behind the scenes. And I think, but also, what is it to be a monster? So I thought, I can work this up. I can work this up into something. Did it in 2019, thinking, oh, I'm going to take this on the road. In fact, took it to Las Vegas, and Clive got to see it. Clive was very supportive in the creation of this. And then during lockdown, somebody said to me they were doing an online version of their festival. Soho Horror Festival became Home Horror Festival. It was a good mate of mine, Mitch, who was doing Mitch Harrod. And he just said, Nick, could you do just a couple of excerpts? It would be kind of cool if you did that, because obviously people can't see I Am Monsters, and really enjoyed it. So I thought, I looked at it and I thought, actually, this is kind of interesting. And then wrote up the script and looked at the script and expanded it. So basically it grew from 50 minutes to 70 minutes. And then it was about, okay, it's not, what we don't want to do is just film a stage performance. We need to do more than this. And so there is animation in there, and you get to see, it starts with the stage performance, and that's the way we begin it, because very much based on the stage performance, but then we start going to other places and so on. So it is me telling stories for 70 minutes, but there are a lot of laughs. There are quite a lot of laughs in it as well. Where can you see it? Possibly we're in that kind of kilter moment. Do I want to send it out to more film festivals, or do we want to move straight to distribution? That is a really good question, which I don't know the answer for. The best way to find out where you might get to see it is to go to nicholasvince.com, click on the I Am Monsters link, and then there is you can sign up for the newsletter. I've been really impressed by the fact that I was at a convention a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling people about it, and they were really interested in signing up for it. And I think there's definitely an audience for it. And every time I've sat and screened it, I've screened it in London, screened it in Belgium, to people where English is their second language. And I've built, as I say, in Bournemouth and Birmingham. I've screened it to students. In fact, just trying to work out where I can screen it to different students. And I'm getting really, really good feedback and very, very interesting questions based on it as well. So it's fun.
Yeah, it sounds like something that I could very easily see finding a home like at Screambox at some point.
Yeah,
I mean, do a lot of good horror themed documentaries.
Yeah, I think the very definitely what I want to do is physical media. Probably for about at least a year or so of physical media before we put it onto streaming sites.
Yeah.
Just
you'll
because
make a lot more money off the physical on that side too.
Yeah, and I've got to recoup quite a lot of money. It costs quite a lot to. It is eye water, and do not get me wrong. I've got clips, literally like clips that are 8 seconds long, from the films. And you have to pay for those. And I got really, really good deals because the rights holders were really good to me, but it's still a lot of money. And I'm very, very, very grateful to those folks. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased with the outcome, and the Blu-ray. It means I can do director's commentary, and I can I've literally, in my tidying up today, I discovered the release forms for a couple of short films. So I just need to double check those so we can put those on as Blu-ray extras as well. So I think the Blu-ray package itself, should be with luck at least 4 of my short films.
Hopefully the one with the Peter Vincent guy and you playing Dracula.
That's not my film.
Oh,
that's not my film, I'm afraid. No, that's not my film. That's Dead Mouse. That was all part of the Fright Night.
The Fright Night 2 documentary, which is on Screambox.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. No, those are not produced or owned. I have directed 3 proper short films, and then I wrote and edited a like a minute and a half film, which is really cool, called Paper Cut. So I've got, I think by the looks of it, we should be able to get those 4 onto the Blu-ray now. I've just got to double check. I think there's a couple of releases I need to chase up for those, but hopefully those should be included as well.
Paper Cut sounds terrifying. Paper Cuts are terrifying. All right, well, we'll wrap things up. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram. We have a Facebook group. We have an Amazon Music playlist. We have a TikTok for some reason. So follow us on all those things and see what we're doing. Mr. Vince, Nicholas, thank you so much for taking some time with us. This has probably been one of my favorite interviews, just because Hellraiser and Nightbreed have such a special place in our hearts. You've already told us about your documentary. I do request ship to the US and offer autographed copies.
Yes, all those things are very definitely
nice, because I'm one of those people. I get that. I love physical media. I absolutely adore it. I would show you my area, but it's nasty. But there's a lot of physical media here. So big fan of that. We will definitely purchase our copies. So again, thank you so much. So that's going to be it for this episode. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, Nicholas, Vince, and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.
Just put the gun down before you kill someone.
Teenage Girl's Diary.
Hello and welcome to another Dollar Store Drive-In. I'm your host, Laura.
I'm Joel.
And we're the Newlydeads.
We still are.
And we watched the Newlydeads. I know, I'm just jumping right into it because I wanted to do the sing-songy Newlydeads thing. But before we get to that, yes, we are the Newlydeads. And this is a half-hour chat show where Mr. Newlydead and I discuss a movie that we watched the night before, usually. This is where we I said a half-hour chat show already, but
you did.
The criteria is usually it needs to be under $5. It usually needs to be horror theme related, or sometimes sci-fi, sometimes I don't know, whatever. Thriller. Spooky-ish, spooky adjacent, I guess. Are you doing the thriller dance?
No, that would be more like this.
What was that? It was like you were like hanging on a monkey bar.
Doing that.
Like the
thing.
monkey bar? Yeah.
They call it the monkey Joel? I don't
know. And then what else? Oh, we usually need to find it in the wild. But you know, sometimes
given to us.
Yeah, sometimes. And then sometimes we rent it. This time, it's a little bit different.
This is special.
Yeah, this one's a special one because why?
Because this
our 1 year anniversary
episode represents our 1 year anniversary on Tingler Television, which actually happened on March 1st. But due to my logical error on timing and some issues with Tingler Television, and their issues trying to get things resolved on their end, which good on them, they're working on it. It didn't happen on the 1st. But here we are, and we're saying this is our 1 year anniversary. And the reason this is a little different is because I purchased this movie. It's the first time it's been available on Blu-ray. I got it from TerraVision, our lovely friends at TerraVision. And so I paid full price for it, almost. Actually got a deal, but it was more than $5.
A little bit.
A little bit more.
It took a while to get here too.
Yeah, because it hadn't come out yet. Officially, it hadn't been released. So as soon as it got released, they sent it to me. And
thank you, TerraVision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you got a poster, didn't you? I thought that was like part of that.
T-shirt.
Oh, T-shirt. I knew you held something up, and it was mind it was a poster.
The subscriber T-shirt.
Oh, right.
This year.
Sorry. Oh, and just little housekeeping notes here. Haha, look at me. Like it's like I'm a real TV person / podcaster because we're on both, yes, podcast and also if this is a Wednesday night and you are wanting to hang out with us, you can chat with us if it's 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So where can they find us to chat, Joel?
Well, tinglertelevision.com if it's there, if you don't see it there. The preferred thing right now is on YouTube. Just go to the Tingler Television YouTube channel. And as the show is streaming live as a new release, you can chat with us in there. There is usually at least one or two people in there to hang out during that time. And hopefully by then it'll be back on Roku. And if that's the case, you can still chat with us on Tingler Television, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. You can always hit us up on Facebook as well. We'd be happy to chat with you via Messenger. But at last time I checked, which was last night, there was still no app for it on Tingler. So this time I'm guessing I didn't want to bother Duke or Eulogy because I know they've been busy. So we just kind of rolled with it.
Roll with the punches.
But check our Facebook feed for the Newlydeads, or for if you have if you're friends with us personally. I will always put a post at least 2 days before the episode and tell you where to find it.
Yes. We are going to do one more special thing today, right?
We are?
Mm-hmm.
What's yeah,
you almost forgot.
I forgot.
Didn't you?
We've got,
glad I remembered.
I am. We had a contest.
We did.
If you follow us on Facebook, you probably saw it. We asked people a series of 2 questions. And the third thing was if you shared the post, you could get up to 3 entries, submissions into the contest. So you had to answer both questions and share the post to get all 3. Some people answered just the questions. One person shared just the post and didn't answer the questions at all.
But thank you for that.
Yeah, we appreciate any and all activity. From that, we've generated a list. We've given everybody numbers for complete randomization, and they get an equal number. So if they did 3 times, they get 3 numbers on there. If they did 1, they get 1, etc.
Yeah. So like if your, name is Joel Kenyon or whatever, and you did all 3, then you're like Joel Kenyon 111. And so we would put you on there 1 time and like randomized throughout the.
So they're spread out in the wheel, so you're not just all clumped together. So it gives you a better chance of potentially winning because of having more options.
Yep.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut to the spinner.
We're going to spin it.
We're going to find out who won.
Yeah. So let's do some spinnings. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back. And the winner is number 14, who is...
Which we checked the list as soon as we got there so we could tell you it is...
Congratulations.
Drum roll or something? There's a drum roll. I was just going to insert a drum roll there, but that works too. Teddy Etheridge.
Congratulations. You have won Dead Sea and some other random things that we're going to be sending to you.
We are putting together a scare package just for you that includes an autographed copy of one of the worst films we've seen, Dead Sea.
Congratulations.
Because we talk about it all the time. We have an extra copy, and everybody should see it at least once to hear the modem monster. So we will get all that stuff packed up. We will hit you up for your address. Insider note, we've already got your address because we know who you are. But
well, it
was randomized.
On Facebook know us, so yeah. Yeah. So awesome!
Congrats.
Good job! Congratulations!
And thank you everybody for participating. There will be other contests as you've seen.
We will have more contests. That was really fun, and we like giving away things for free.
Plus, it generates a conversation on our page.
It
and
does.
Over the past 2+ years, we have had several contests, and I've been really surprised and happy with how much interaction we get from our viewers, readers, etc.
We'd really like to grow things. So, the more we can share and the more we get, people doing stuff, the better it is.
And if you check the feed and you see any posts from anybody that's won a package from us, we don't just send you one thing. We tend to get a little crazy with the cheese whiz, as the philosopher Beck once said.
Yeah.
And scare packages are fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So should we get on to the movie and things, right? So yes, we did watch what?
Oh no, you're right.
We did watch the Newlydeads. Oh, there's no. Oh yeah, I need to take off the cover.
The slip cover.
Oh, we have this is a fancy movie.
Hey, the
movies we watch don't have slip covers on them.
Lois Reich did.
Oh, it did.
It
did. That's because it's a fancy movie.
And that movie we really liked.
All right. So the Newlydeads, this wonderfully gruesome tale of horror, tells the story of 5 newlywed couples. Who arrive at the Newlywed Hotel, a beautiful lakeside resort run by Lloyd Stone. Their arrival has been plagued by a supernatural ghost hell-bent on preventing her playboy ex-lover from getting married. Wedded bliss turns to horror as the guests are brutally murdered one by one. Only Lloyd possesses the power to stop the newlyweds from becoming the Newlydeads. Says, it's got a bunch of other information on here. Yeah. I think that's stuff you're going to be talking about a little bit later.
We'll cover something.
I
wanted it to be a surprise.
No, I see. Okay.
Because you didn't know about it, and I found out today. So.
All right, I hear you. I see you. Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. We've got things to talk about in this movie.
Yeah. So we're just gonna have to keep.
I'm interested in the commentary now
because we've only got 30 minutes to do it. So
I'm interested in watching that with Alicia.
Fast. We'll see.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Insider.
Yes. We're going to watch the trailer now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Where is it?
Oh, I think it's right here.
Oh, by Shaggy.
Can we make it look like a wedding trailer?
I don't know. I can try with the AI stuff and see, but...
Wait, is that the wedding?
That's the end of the wedding.
Yeah.
When everybody's leaving. They throw the thing and the rice.
Okay. All right, we'll be right back.
Whitestone's lodge for newlyweds is the perfect romantic retreat, with one exception. The dead demon in drag who keeps killing everybody. 20 years ago, the lodge owner brutally murdered Jackie, a sex-crazed transvestite. Now Jackie's back, and she's got a bloody bone to pick.
Get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow's gonna be one hell of a day.
Lloyd's honeymooners are getting turned inside out, literally, by this skirt-swishing, throat-slashing zombie in their midst.
Don't touch her!
Only one guest has the power to put a stop to this bloodbath. Chris, a psychic bride who knows the truth about Jackie's death.
You killed her, didn't you?
She's a man.
But when even her husband won't believe her...
Let me tell you something, this psychic act of yours has gone a little too far, don't you think?
How can Chris hope to convince the murderer to quit her campaign of gory vengeance?
Well, how can we kill her if she's already dead?
Newlydeads will shock you with more plot twists than Scream.
Someone is gonna be murdered tonight.
More violence than Reservoir Dogs. And more costume changes than Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. The first night after marriage has never made newlyweds this nervous. Newlydeads. From Troma, of course.
All right, we're back.
What'd
So,
you think of the trailer?
What'd you think of the trailer? I don't know. Did you throw some things in it? I don't
Maybe.
think you did.
You
I don't
think
know.
so?
Maybe you did. I don't
I don't
know. I don't know until we watch it. I actually watch it when you guys watch it.
I don't even know until I put it all together. And I don't even know what I'm going to do when I do it. So,
Yeah.
So I've got my notes here, and just so I can show her, I always do a little bit of drawings. We've got a robot, because I love to draw robots. We've got an angry little face. It looks kind of like a mad ball.
Stabby knife.
We've got a ice pick and a knife, because there was an ice pick and a knife that was
I
utilized.
saw you wrote Doug Jones.
And I wrote Doug Jones because we'll
Doug
get to that.
Mhm.
So, and these notes will be available in our 1 year something. I don't know, Laura was going to put something together with the notes, like a flip book or something for those who are interested.
I'm going to work on it. You need to. Oh yeah,
they're all
because they're all
collected so
together.
far.
Okay,
This one's
I'll
even
do
in
that.
there. Yeah,
Okay.
they're all in there.
Let's put that on my to-do list.
The only ones that are not in there was the very first 2 shows,
I'm
I think,
very
or maybe the
excited
very
about that.
first show. I didn't do this, and then I started taking notes, and the notes have slowly progressed, and now there's a format to them. But anyway, so you'll see them hopefully soon. Maybe you'll regret that. So The Newlydeads is from 1988. It's a Troma film. Uncle Lloydie, how you doing? This is 3.9 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database. This is directed by Joseph Merhai, who is known for Repo Jake, Zero Tolerance,
Why are you looking at me like?
and Direct Hit.
All right,
Those all sound like movies I would probably watch.
probably.
He also wrote the film with a couple other people. He's known for his film that he wrote called Epitaph, The Killer's Edge, and Intent to Kill, which kind of sounds like it goes with all those other movies. This was also written by Sean Dash, not to be confused with DoorDash. Unless you want a Sean delivered, then call Sean Dash, who is known for writing Emperor of the Bronx, Ice, just Ice, A Dangerous Place, which if there's a lot of ice, it's probably dangerous, and Breakaway. And finally, Laurel Fest, which if you have ever been to the Laurel Fest, it's just a lot of people named Laurel, and Hardy sometimes.
With like plants.
Oh, good call. But they are known for writing this, and that's all. So this stars one Doug Jones, who doesn't have a huge role in this film, but it was his first role, who was in, you may know him from Hellboy 1 and 2. He played Abe Sapien. He was in The Shape of Water, in which he played a very similar character to Abe Sapien. And he was in Pan's Labyrinth, which if you're familiar with Doug Jones, he's a lanky, tall dude who typically does a lot of... Yep, he does a lot of makeup work. He's not afraid to be covered up, and he does stuff where he's outside of makeup, but he was also in the What We Do in the Shadows TV show. Forgot to mention that. He's great. We love Doug Jones.
Yeah.
We're a fan. This also stars Scott Caskey, who was in a film called Bank Robber, The Birdcage. What is that? Never heard of it. And Ringer.
He's being funny, by the way.
I am trying to be. And finally, the last person I was going to mention was Roxana Michaels, who was known for Inside Out 3, Erotic Dreams 3, Unexpected Encounters Volume 3.
Shut up.
And Angel 3, the final chapter.
What is up with the threes?
I don't know. 3's my
That is
favorite number. That and
weird.
13. I like,
Same.
threes.
Same. Same.
But apparently she did a lot of triples. I don't know. I even double checked. I'm like, maybe there's a 2 in there. They were all 3s.
That's weird.
All right. At this point, my wife says,
"What you think?"
And we say, we watched this with my youngest kid, and then my oldest kid ended up coming out right at like the last 5-10 minutes of it, so caught the very tail end. And my youngest kid said that this is now people are going to think that
We're associated with it,
right? That we got our name from this.
That
movie.
we
Let me
we're
be
like, oh,
very
this is our
clear.
favorite movie.
We did not know this movie existed when we came up with the name. We actually had a couple of ideas, and this is the one that we've stuck. After the fact, after we'd already started using it, somebody said we should have been the Newlydeads.
Yeah.
Which I like this one better, but she liked the Newlydeads better. But we did not know the film existed. We didn't know the band existed. All we did was check to make sure that there wasn't a business. And we saw that some listings came up, but none of them were a business. And then after the fact, we found out this. So just wanted to clear that up for all these out there. So I have thoughts. First of all, it was a super long opening song at the beginning of the movie, which that's becomes kind of the hallmark of the film, is that everything is really long shots, long
Everything
takes,
long, weird walking shots.
Like they're padding the time.
Weird footsteps. Yeah, it was just.
Oh yeah, the ADR on it was very strange. There was also a lot of really dark, weird Vaseline lens shots. At the beginning.
I think it was trying to show the past.
Yeah, which we found out later there was a 15 years in the past. Once it zipped forward to the present, it's a little better.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But if you've ever seen like Skinemax movies where they do like the soft focus, like way back in the day, and we've talked about this on a prior episode, that they sometimes would put
Vaseline,
a Vaseline type stuff on the lens to kind of give it a soft focus. Now they can just do a soft focus.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that both you and I said, and my kid, during the entire film was, what's happening? What is this movie? What's going on? We were very confused.
Yeah. Definitely. They hated this movie. Like, they hated it.
Yeah. My kid would, I mean, they had fun making jokes about some of the things, but, and I get
they were mad. They were
weren't-
like angry that they like wasted their life watching this movie. They were so angry at it.
I mean, the only thing that was redeeming about the film to them was the punk rock couple that were engaged to be married that survived the film. Spoiler alert. What they call them, a watermelon head?
Watermelon hair.
Yeah,
they had a mohawk that was like looked like watermelon. It was like pink and green stripes
and a really bad English accent.
Mm-hmm.
We were happy to see Doug Jones, but Doug Jones didn't last very long. So in the beginning, the main character, the hero, somebody comes to the hotel, he puts the moves on him, or vice versa. Somehow they start getting a little, and turns out that the person that he's kissing is a man dressed as a woman, to which they get into an argument, turns into a fight, and he ends up killing the person. And so then 15 years later, the guy, Mustache, we'll call him Mustache, I don't remember his actual name, is still running the hotel and has gotten rid of the person that he killed and pretended like it never happened. Nobody apparently ever came to check on him. And the person comes back from the dead and starts killing people. That's the basic premise. But there's a scene where the zombie, we'll call him the zombie, shows up.
Lloyd
is the hero.
That's the guy that owns it.
The mustache.
Mm-hmm.
The zombie shows up, and the I don't know if it's the makeup or just the sound or whatever, but they were incredibly hard to understand. Like I made a
they
joke
had
about
a
it.
mask on. They had some prosthetics that it was muffling things.
So like the whatever they were using to record didn't pick things up very well. So if you remember in Navy SEALs v Zombies or v Demons. There's a whole thing that I did in there with subtitles. I feel like that was almost necessary here because it was like,
Yeah.
Also, it was an hour into the film and barely anybody was dead. And we're like, they kept introducing more characters.
Oh my God, so many characters. Well, when I read the synopsis, it said 5 couples.
Yep.
So it's just like, it just kept going on and on and on, more and more and more and more couples. I was like, okay, why? Like, and we didn't know, I didn't read the synopsis beforehand. So it's just like, no one's dead yet.
Nope.
They just keep adding more people.
And you have
his kid's like, what? Why? What is happening?
Yeah.
Why do we need more people? Like, just kill someone, for crying out loud.
You had Lloyd the mustache, and he had one worker that was selling flowers. There was a minister that was drunk, and then there was 5 couples times 2, so that's
10 people there.
Plus that's 13, plus the killer, that's 14. And there was still, I swear, at least a couple more people like that were
just floating
there.
around. And it was too many people to keep track of.
And so at the end, it's an hour and 20 minutes. It was an hour and they killed like 3 people.
It seemed way longer than that.
And it did, which is weird. And we're like, there's a lot of people to kill. Is there just going to be mass slaughter at the end? And the answer is sort of.
Oh, and cops. There was cops too.
Oh, there was 2 police officers that
wandering
were
the woods aimlessly. And the psychic lady.
Oh, right.
She wasn't a newly. That wasn't part of it.
There. Her and her husband with glasses.
Yeah, they weren't part of the newlywed people, though.
Oh,
were
they just stopped there because of they hit.
He almost
ghost.
hit someone.
And then she's like, "We're staying," and he's like, "I don't want to stay," and she's like, "We're staying," and so they stayed. I wrote "Trail of Boobs." I said it was way too long because there was that trail with she running around with her boobs out or something.
Yeah.
But I said, you get it. It felt like there was lots of random ideas that they strung together into a plot. The makeup effects were not good. I mean, again, Trauma is not the hallmark of quality, but a lot of times the movies are a lot of fun. They have a lot of heart. Some of them are sequel worthy, but a lot of times, Lloyd will give people the opportunity if he feels that it's, exploitation or whatever good enough to put out there. But it doesn't always mean it's a great movie that's going to be, fan favorite. But I mean, I wrote it here, WTAF, because I literally still don't totally understand what the point of this movie was. So the big contention in the film that my kid brought up first that we agreed with and we kept hoping was going to be proved wrong. And granted, this is 1988, so the worldview was a little different.
Yeah.
And what was acceptable. And this is talked about, if you've ever seen the documentary Queer for Fear that's on Shudder, excellent documentary, but they talk at length about how they use,
trans people,
specifically trans people more than almost any other. I mean,
as the villain,
right? We'll just say the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, but the trans people specifically tend to kind of get, or people that just prefer, to cross-dress. In this case, the guy,
like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Like it's almost like they're vilifying them, saying that because of their, who they are as a person, that they are therefore evil. Now we're not going to get into all of that, as far as personal politics, because that isn't what the show is about. But it kind of made the movie uncomfortable because, it's not something you still see it, but it just felt like it was very blatant, and that the guy that was the one that killed them because they found out that it was a man and they were uncomfortable with that. They were the hero, and that's the part I think I had the biggest problem with.
At first, I thought it was going to be flipped, so I thought it was. I was excited. Because as soon as I found out that the person was trans, I'm like, oh, or they didn't say if he was trans or
they didn't say specifically. We're just going to assume that was the case.
Because they called the person she the entire time, so I'm assuming that
the entire film they referred to as she
and her, and even says it on the back of the box. So I'm assuming that they're trans.
Correct. That's where we're getting that from.
Yeah. And so I was excited because like she was kicking some butt, you know, and I was like, great, you know. But no, it, you know, it just they ended up being this like evil ghost that was like killing everybody for no reason, and like just wanted to sleep with that guy ultimately. Like
that was the whole point, is that they were so attracted to this guy that nobody else could, you know, get close to him, and that they were gonna get him one way or the other, and they lured them out. And even once the spoilers, once they killed her, the guy was the one that did it, and he made out like a hero. Like, it's like, yay. So again, I don't want to get into personal politics, you know, about any of this.
I mean, my personal politics is like, I boo.
Exactly. Okay. So fair enough. Yeah, we're both on the same page about that.
Yeah.
So it made us upset.
We are allies of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Correct. And we didn't want to, you know, we don't necessarily want to have our names associated with it in that regard, that, you know, we're supporting it. However, what is interesting and what she went about when she read the back, and I didn't realize until today, number one, there's some special features on there, which I haven't watched yet, but there is at least over an hour's worth of interviews. Doug Jones' interview is a half an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman who played the zombie ghost also has a half an hour interview on there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a commentary track with one of the two people being providing the commentary is Peaches Christ.
Yeah, I love Peaches Christ.
And again, if you are familiar with Shudder or the Queer for Fear documentary or Dragula or just the drag community at large, Peaches Christ is a big deal. A filmmaker, activist, just generally damn entertaining person.
Yeah.
So if they're on there providing commentary,
I'm interested
to watch it again, only for that reason.
I want to watch the commentary. I just want to see what she has to say about things.
Because maybe we're missing something. I don't.
Well,
think
no,
so,
I mean, it could be that she agrees. You know, that like it's, you know, that this is a villain. You know, but
and they're showing that this is an example of what cinema was, and I'm sure there's still examples of it out there, but I think it's a little bit better. But
I think that I'm interested to watch it and understand it from, you know, somebody who's you know, a drag queen. Like I'm trying to like, you know, and lives in the community. That's the one I'm trying to say. You're like looking at me like, what are you trying to say?
Living out
words.
Loud.
Yes.
Living
that
truth.
understands it better. That's what I'm trying to say.
Because we can say we understand and we're an ally.
I'm a white woman who's, you know, like
we're not
cisgendered, you know, like
right. So we only have so
like,
much understanding, but we've not lived that.
Yes.
So that's what I think you're trying to say.
I'm saying it from my lens, and I want to say it. Yeah, like it's going to be interesting to hear her perspective.
So we may have to report back with that, but we are running short on time. So let's go ahead and.
Okay, so what would you give it? 1 out of 5 ice picks.
For the fact that it's trauma, which I love trauma, and the fact that it is Doug Jones, I'll give it 0.5, but I'm not going any higher.
I'm going to give it a 0. I didn't fall asleep.
She didn't. And I mean, there was all 4 of us watching it, which is unusual.
Yeah. But I mean, your kid was angry.
I think our kids probably won't watch a movie with us again for the show. Who knows?
Yeah. You never
know. You never know.
You never know.
We had big hopes.
We did.
And it is part of the collection. It will be on the shelf. And that's why I'm curious to watch the commentary track. See what that does for us.
Yes.
But in name only,
our list.
Should be on the shelf for that reason only.
Agreed. So. Yeah. But that is not why we named ourselves the Newlydeads.
No.
We're trying to be cute. Yeah.
We are cute.
Yes. So if they don't want to watch the Newlydeads, what would you like to watch instead?
This movie is also on the shelf. I'm providing the film from 1981, A Ghost Story, which is...
You talk about that all the time.
Nope, not that.
Oh, a different one.
This is the original one. It's a film about a woman who dies, unfortunately, at the hands of 5 dudes. One of them is Fred Astaire, John Houseman, a bunch of big name people. So actually, I think Fred Astaire's last film. But the woman is played by Alice Krieg. She comes back as a ghost and proceeds to murder them. And I believe it's been a while since I've seen it, but I believe she murders their kids too. But she takes revenge on the people who did wrong to her. And I
Good for
feel like
her.
it's a similar story, just done the appropriate way. And it's an interesting film.
It's like a revenge story, but by a ghost.
But the ghost takes revenge for the way that they were killed by these gentlemen.
Good.
Like I said, Fred Astaire is one of them, and it's not a musical.
Crazy.
It's a horror film with Fred Astaire.
Weird.
Right?
Very weird. Okay. And so what are we watching next week?
Oh, yes.
All right, I'm not going to blow this up.
No.
I'm just going to set it over here nicely.
It's got to go on the shelf. So for next week, we are watching from the Big Box of Fun.
Watching an English Haunting.
A Haunting in English.
Yes. And so it's Live a Little Lie or Die for the Truth.
Sounds like a song.
In 1960s England, Blake Cunningham and his alcoholic mother are forced to move into the mysterious Clemente Hall, a vast isolated manor house, to care for his dying grandfather who resides in the attic room. Soon, ghostly goings-on fill the house with dread as it becomes apparent grandfather's illness may have supernatural cause that can only be cured by uncovering the terrifying secrets of the house and its dark history.
Can only be cured by more cowbell. And apparently Clemente, isn't that the drink, like clam juice? Clemente.
No, that's clam.
Clamata?
Yes.
Sounds like a venereal disease, and Clemente sounds like a bad
vagina dentata.
Vagina dentata. Or Clemente could be like a baseball player.
Oh.
Yeah, like Mark Clemente.
Yeah. Clemente. There was a Clemente.
There was.
Yeah.
Roberto Clemente. But I was trying to.
You were trying to be nice.
Trying to be funny. Because I don't know.
Be careful for what
much
you
about
look for. Oh, yeah.
What you look for?
That's what it says.
It's weird. Okay.
Be careful for what you look for.
I don't have high hopes, but we'll find out soon enough, I guess.
Well, all right. Okay, well, if you want to find us, you can find us at thenewlydeads.com. That is the one-stop shop for all things Newly Dead. You can find all of our YouTube, information on there. You can find our blog posts. We do really fun, different things each week, 2 times a week, actually.
Dose.
Dose. Someday we'll have some new things that you can purchase on there. But yeah, we do different events and things like that. So we'll pop those up there.
And if you're interested in us selling merchandise, let us know. We're working on what we're going to put on there. But if you want like Newly Dead shirts or hats or whatever, let us know because, we listen. We'll consider it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Thank you for sticking with us for 1 whole year.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of fun this last year.
Yep.
We're already working on our next year's content. And with us having 6 days out of the 7 days of the week, having something put out there new for you to read, view, listen to, thank you all. We wouldn't do it if you weren't listening or watching or reading.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you.
And we do this all for free.
And we do it all for love.
Yeah.
Just like Brian
It's
Adams.
just for love.
He's in our closet.
No. All right. Well, until next week.
Keep it cheap and creepy.
Go look after your mother and sister. Where are you going? I'm gonna finish this. Goodbye, Tom.